What if the spotlight that makes stars shine is the same force that destroys them? Behind every red carpet and flashing camera lies a darker truth: broken childhoods, secret addictions, and glittering lives collapsing in silence. These aren't fictional tragedies written for the screen. They're real stories of icons crushed by the dream factory itself. From the young actor who couldn't escape his darkest role to the voice that shook the world before it shattered, these tales reveal the shocking price of fame. In the next 15 minutes, the curtain gets pulled back to expose how the pursuit of stardom transforms into a nightmare no one expects. If you're ready to see what Hollywood doesn't want you to know, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the stories that demand to be told. Heath Ledger, the role that consumed him. No one was truly prepared for what Heath Ledger was about to unleash. Not Hollywood, not his fans, not even himself. Young, magnetic, and gifted with rare emotional depth, Ledger didn't just play characters. He disappeared into them completely. His career shifted forever in 2008 with The Dark Knight, where he transformed into the Joker, a villain unlike any seen before. His Joker wasn't a cartoonish foe, but a chilling force of chaos, unpredictable, disturbing, hypnotic. Critics hailed it as one of the greatest performances in modern cinema. But behind the applause, Ledger was unraveling. Friends recalled that he struggled to step away from the role. Insomnia plagued him relentlessly. His diet suffered. Anxiety gnawed at him night after night. To quiet his racing mind, he relied on a dangerous cocktail of prescription medications, sleeping pills, painkillers, anti-anxiety drugs. Each night became a gamble with his health, a desperate attempt to find rest that never came. On January 22, 2008, New York City awoke to shocking news. Heath Ledger, only 28 years old, was found dead in his Soho apartment. The autopsy confirmed an accidental overdose of prescription drugs. Yet the question lingered in the air like smoke. Was it truly an accident, or the inevitable result of an industry that pushes its brightest stars past their breaking point? Hollywood mourned a legend gone too soon, but his death remains a haunting reminder that fame, while dazzling, can also be devastating, leaving even the most brilliant talents isolated with their demons. Philip Seymour Hoffman, the master undone. Philip Seymour Hoffman was never a conventional movie star. He didn't possess the chiseled looks of a leading man, nor did he chase the spotlight with hungry ambition. Yet whenever he appeared on screen, time seemed to pause. His portrayal of Truman Capote earned him an Academy Award, and films like The Master, Doubt, and Magnolia showcased his unmatched ability to disappear completely into a role. Hoffman was a true chameleon, a master of his craft, admired by peers for bringing raw authenticity to every character he inhabited. But even the brightest talents carry private battles invisible to the watching world. From a young age, Hoffman struggled with addiction, a fight he managed to keep under control for more than 20 years of hard-won sobriety. For a time, he seemed to embody the hope that recovery was genuinely possible, that demons could be conquered and kept at bay. Then, in 2012, cracks began to show. Relapses followed, along with multiple attempts at treatment. Behind closed doors, far from cameras and accolades, he wrestled with a relentless struggle that few understood. On February 2nd, 2014, the world learned the heartbreaking news. Hoffman had been discovered unresponsive in his New York apartment at just 46 years old. The details shocked many because he wasn't a reckless newcomer or a cautionary tale of sudden fame. He was a respected veteran, a father of 3, and a beloved colleague. His passing underscored a painful truth that addiction does not discriminate. It reaches beyond trophies, talent, or public admiration. Without help and lasting peace, even the strongest can be overwhelmed by forces they cannot control alone. River Phoenix. beauty. Interrupted River Phoenix had the face of an angel and the soul of a storm. He wasn't just Hollywood's next big star, he was the promise of an entire generation. Compared to James Dean, and praised for the quiet power of Stand By Me and the raw intensity of My Own Private Idaho, Phoenix didn't need to shout to move audiences. His presence was hypnotic, authentic, unforgettable. Critics spoke of him in reverent tones, predicting decades of brilliant work ahead. But behind the brilliance was a darkness few could see beneath the surface. He grew up in a bohemian family where music, activism, and freedom shaped his unconventional childhood, but so did contradictions. In that world, drugs were not entirely hidden, creating a risky environment that shadowed him into adulthood. A child prodigy turned cultural icon, River carried wounds that neither fame nor applause could heal. On October 31st, 1993, he went to the Viper Room, an exclusive Los Angeles club partly owned by Johnny Depp, alongside his brother Joaquin and close friends. What was meant to be a night of celebration became a tragedy etched permanently into Hollywood's memory. Outside on the cold sidewalk, River collapsed after taking a lethal mix of heroin and cocaine. Joaquin, then just 19, frantically called 911 in a desperate attempt to save his brother, but it was already too late. River Phoenix, only 23 years old, was gone. The news shook the world with tremors that lasted for years. His passing was more than a loss. It was a warning about the relentless pressures of growing up under the spotlight, about the hidden battles with addiction behind the glamour, and about the cruel cost of brilliance burning too bright too soon. Whitney Houston, the voice that broke. Whitney Houston was the voice. She didn't just sing, she shook the entire world. With I Will Always Love You, she shattered records, mesmerized millions, and became an icon of unmatched grace, beauty, and power. On stage, she seemed untouchable. A goddess descended to share her gift. Her voice could lift souls or break hearts with a single note. But behind the dazzling image, Whitney was already breaking inside in ways her audience couldn't see. Her turbulent relationship with Bobby Brown marked the beginning of a devastating downward spiral. Together, they fell into cycles of heavy drug and alcohol use that consumed everything. What began as passion turned toxic, fueled by excess, fights, and secrecy that newspapers eagerly documented. The once flawless diva began to fade before the public's eyes. Her golden voice faltered in ways that shocked longtime fans. Her live performances became erratic and unpredictable. And as tabloids mocked her struggles with cruel headlines, she sank deeper into addiction's grip. On February 11th, 2012, the night before the Grammy Awards, tragedy struck with devastating finality. Whitney was discovered unresponsive in the bathtub of her Beverly Hills hotel room at just 48 years old. The coroner later confirmed the cause: accidental drowning with cocaine, alcohol, and prescription medications contributing to her death. The world was stunned into collective grief. How could a woman with such brilliance, such undeniable light, end this way? The answer was painful to confront. Her cries for help were drowned out by an industry that pushed her back on stage even as her spirit was unraveling, prioritizing profit over the person behind the voice. Lindsay Lohan, the child star. Who fell for a time, Lindsay Lohan seemed unstoppable, destined for Hollywood royalty. With her mischievous smile and natural talent, she charmed the world in The Parent Trap. Later in Mean Girls, she reigned as the undisputed queen of teen cinema. She had charisma, presence, and that indefinable spark, destined, it seemed, for a permanent place at Hollywood's glittering top. But behind the shine, her reality was far darker than anyone wanted to acknowledge. Lindsay grew up in a home marked by chaos, with parents whose public battles brought more scandal than stability. Instead of finding refuge in family, she found exposure and dysfunction. Fame didn't arrive gently. It crashed over her like a relentless storm. $1 million contracts, endless parties, paparazzi at every corner, and an industry eager to exploit her youth created a perfect recipe for disaster. Slowly, predictably, it all began to unravel in spectacular fashion. Arrests for driving under the influence, drug possession headlines, and repeated rehab stays turned her promising career into a media spectacle. Each stumble became tabloid fodder, overshadowing the genuine talent that first made her a star. In candid moments during rare interviews, Lindsay admitted she used substances to numb an emptiness she didn't know how to face or articulate. She tried comebacks multiple times, fighting desperately to reclaim her career and reputation. Yet Hollywood, merciless as ever, saw her as a liability rather than an asset. Though her talent never disappeared, her image was fractured beyond easy repair. Today, Lindsay has carved out a more stable life away from the chaos. She married, welcomed her first child in 2023, and lives largely out of the spotlight in Dubai, rebuilding step by careful step. Marilyn Monroe, the icon, who couldn't escape. Marilyn Monroe was more than an actress. She was a symbol, a myth, a woman who redefined sensuality in Hollywood's golden age. With platinum hair, red lips, and a playful laugh that seemed to promise everything, she captivated millions and became one of the most recognizable faces of the 20th century. Her image sold dreams, desire, and the fantasy that happiness could be bought with beauty. But behind the glamour was Norma Jean Mortensen, a woman shaped entirely by pain and abandonment. Her childhood was marked by foster homes and orphanages after her mother was placed in a psychiatric hospital. Stability and love were strangers to her formative years, ghosts she chased but never caught. Hollywood saw only the image they created. To the studios, she was a blonde doll built to charm audiences, not an artist to be taken seriously or given complex roles. Marilyn, however, longed desperately for respect, depth, and meaningful work that reflected her intelligence. Instead, she was given contracts she couldn't refuse and pills to keep her going. Barbiturates for sleep, sedatives for anxiety, uppers to perform. As the years passed, insomnia, loneliness, and heartbreak, particularly her failed marriages to Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, pushed her further into quiet despair. On August 5, 1962, Marilyn was found unresponsive in her Los Angeles home at just 36 years old. The official cause was acute barbiturate poisoning, but her passing has remained clouded by mystery, conspiracy theories, and unanswered questions that persist decades later. Today, her face still sells magazines and decorates walls worldwide, but her true story is a tragedy veiled in glamour, an enduring reminder of what happens when the world turns a wounded woman into an object of desire without ever caring for her soul. Macaulay Culkin, the boy who disappeared. Macaulay Culkin was once the most recognizable child on the entire planet. With Home Alone, he became Hollywood's golden boy, a star whose charm seemed completely effortless and natural. Every line, every mischievous look pulled audiences in with magnetic force. By the time most kids were playing in their backyards without a care, Culkin was a global phenomenon earning millions, long before he could fully understand what fame actually meant or what it would cost him. But the fairy tale had a dark shadow lurking behind the scenes: his family. His father, Kit Culkin, also served as his manager and controller. Instead of nurturing his son's talent, he treated the boy like a product, an investment, and a money-making machine to be exploited. The pressure was relentless and unforgiving. Macaulay's childhood was consumed by rigid schedules, endless work, and suffocating control that left no room for normalcy. At just 14 years old, drained and emotionally exhausted, he made the toughest choice of his young life: to walk away completely from Hollywood and the career others had built on his small shoulders. Without structure or purpose afterward, he struggled to find his identity. The press soon circulated troubling images of him looking frail and withdrawn, sparking widespread rumors of serious addiction. Culkin denied the worst stories in later interviews, though he admitted experimenting with substances during his search to escape a life he had never actually chosen for himself. His decline wasn't marked by explosive scandals that dominated headlines, but by a slow, unsettling retreat into the shadows where cameras couldn't follow. Today, Macaulay has found a measure of peace, living quietly with actress Brenda Song and their son, a reminder that some childhood stars do eventually find their way back. Charlie Sheen, the Tiger. Who fell for years, Charlie Sheen was television's undisputed king, ruling primetime with swagger and irreverence. With 2.5 Men, he became the highest-paid actor in the world, earning nearly $2 million per episode. His humor, charisma, and unapologetic wildness were ratings gold. Networks loved him, audiences adored him, and advertisers lined up eagerly. But the sarcastic, wild character audiences loved on screen wasn't an invention or clever acting. It was Charlie himself, unfiltered and unchecked. From a young age, Sheen embraced a reckless lifestyle with enthusiasm, heavy partying, alcohol, drugs, escorts, and endless nights of excess that became his brand. He wore the bad boy label proudly, like a badge of honor, never apologizing or pretending otherwise. Yet while cameras celebrated him and tabloids breathlessly reported his exploits, his personal life was crumbling behind closed doors. Legal troubles mounted, allegations of violence surfaced, and stints in rehab became routine. Everything spun increasingly out of control. By 2011, he hit bottom in spectacular public fashion. Erratic interviews, bizarre catchphrases like tiger blood and winning, and unpredictable behavior that shocked even Hollywood's jaded insiders led to his firing from the very show that made him a millionaire. Overnight, he transformed from beloved star to viral punchline, a cautionary tale told in real time. The harshest revelation came in 2015 when Sheen publicly confirmed he was living with HIV, a diagnosis he had hidden for years while fearing stigma and public exposure. The announcement shocked the world and forced him to confront not only his declining health, but the emotional and financial wreckage left behind. Since then, Sheen has spoken more openly about his struggles, sought proper treatment, and tried to rebuild what remains of his life and reputation. Judy Garland, the girl behind the rainbow. Judy Garland was never given a chance to simply be a child. At just 13 years old, she was handed the role that would define her entire existence, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Her voice, pure and powerful beyond her years, captured hearts worldwide. But behind that iconic performance was a young girl already trapped in Hollywood's merciless machine, ground down by studio executives who saw only profit potential. MGM Studios controlled every aspect of her life with iron authority. They put her on strict diets to maintain an impossibly thin figure. They handed her pills to keep her awake during endless 18-hour shooting days, then gave her different pills to help her sleep at night. Before she was old enough to understand the consequences, Judy Garland was addicted to amphetamines and barbiturates, a dependency created and sustained by the very system that made her famous. As she grew older, the pressure never lessened. It only intensified with each passing year. Failed marriages, financial troubles, orchestrated by others, and mental health struggles compounded her suffering. She turned to alcohol and prescription drugs not for recreation, but for survival, desperate to numb the pain of a life she never controlled. Her performances remained brilliant even as her personal life deteriorated, a testament to raw talent that couldn't be destroyed even by the cruelest circumstances. On June 22, 1969, Judy Garland was found dead in her London home at just 47 years old. The cause was an accidental overdose of barbiturates, the same pills that had controlled her life since childhood. Her death marked the tragic end of a woman who gave everything to audiences but received little protection in return. Today, she's remembered as one of entertainment's greatest talents and one of its most heartbreaking casualties. A girl who sang about rainbows but never found peace on the other side. Robert Downey Jr., the comeback that almost wasn't. Robert Downey Jr. was born into Hollywood royalty, the son of underground filmmaker Robert Downey Sr. Talent seemed to flow through his veins naturally. By his 20s, he was already earning critical acclaim, nominated for an Academy Award for his transformative performance in Chaplin. His range was extraordinary, his charisma undeniable. The industry saw unlimited potential in the young actor who seemed destined for legendary status. But underneath the promise was a darkness that had been planted early. Downey later revealed that his father introduced him to drugs as a child, a misguided attempt at bonding that planted seeds of addiction before he understood what was happening. By the time he reached fame, substance abuse had already woven itself into the fabric of his life, an invisible chain he couldn't break no matter how hard he tried. The 90s became a nightmare cycle of arrests, jail time, and rehab stays that seemed endless. He was caught with heroin, cocaine, and various other substances repeatedly. Movie studios refused to insure him, effectively blacklisting one of the most talented actors of his generation. Friends watched helplessly as he threw away opportunity after opportunity. At his lowest point, Downey was found unconscious in a neighbor's home, having wandered in while intoxicated. It seemed inevitable that his story would end in tragedy like so many before him. But then something remarkable happened, something Hollywood rarely witnesses. Through a combination of court-mandated treatment, the support of his wife Susan, and a fierce personal determination to reclaim his life, Downey fought his way back from the edge. In 2008, against all odds, he was cast as Iron Man, a role that would resurrect his career and make him one of the highest-paid actors in the world. His comeback wasn't just professional. It was deeply personal. Proof that redemption is possible, even after the darkest falls. Today, he stands as a rare Hollywood success story, someone who stared into the abyss and managed to climb back out. 10 lives, 10 different stories. Yet one devastating truth connects them all. The spotlight that makes stars shine can just as easily destroy them. Some found redemption in the final act, clawing their way back from edges that claimed so many others. Some were lost too soon, their brilliance extinguished before the world was ready to say goodbye. And some remain warnings etched permanently into Hollywood's conscience, reminders of the price paid when talent meets an industry that often values profit over people. Their stories teach uncomfortable lessons worth remembering. First, that fame is not salvation. It's simply a magnifying glass that makes existing pain unbearable. Second, that addiction recognizes no boundaries of talent, wealth, or acclaim. It takes whoever it touches with cold indifference. And finally, behind every headline and scandal is a human being fighting battles most will never see or understand, deserving of compassion rather than judgment. These weren't just cautionary tales manufactured for entertainment. They were real people with real dreams who gave everything to their craft, only to discover that everything wasn't enough to protect them from themselves or the system that consumed them. Their legacy lives on not just in their performances, but in the questions their lives force us to ask about an industry that continues creating stars while struggling to keep them alive. In the end, perhaps the greatest tragedy isn't how these stories ended, but how many could have been prevented if anyone had cared enough to look beyond the product and see the person underneath. If these stories moved you, honor their memory by hitting that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who needs to understand that behind every star is a human story worth protecting. And in the comments below, let us know which story affected you most. We'll see you in the next one, where we continue pulling back the curtain on truths that demand to be told.